All right, welcome back, everyone. We're here for another profit focused episode to discuss some
Yes.
specifics on how to increase your conversion rate. So last week, Hamen and I went through everything in respect to paid ads and traffic and how to make sure your ads are converting at the right levels, getting that performance that you need to on the advertising side of things as the first step in this kind of like little holy trinity of focuses that we need to do to increase profitability of your e-commerce business. So Hammond, welcome back again. Always a pleasure to have you here. Super excited for this one.
Excited. So yeah, very excited. Actually, last time we talked about like the top of the funnel, looking at the CPC. Right now we're moving a little bit. So we're looking at the conversion rate. And as I mentioned, you need to look at the full funnel. So we started with the top of the funnel, looking at those ads, how they're performing. Now we're moving like one step and we're looking at the conversion rate. Is it actually working? And yeah, very excited to tackle this. I think a lot of value to look at the conversion rate and pretty much one of the main elements that we talked about, conversion rate, AOV, and CPC.
So just to recap, so if people are kind of joining us only for this is the first episode they might be joining. So what we essentially discussed there, maybe if you wanted to shed some light on a quick little recap of what we covered on last episode, just to fill people in and bring them up to speed.
Absolutely. So last episode, and I would encourage you guys to watch it pretty much because, I can't really just go over everything. I think it was pretty much a detailed structure on everything in terms of how you can get your CPC down, both on terms of volume and in terms of things to focus on. So I would encourage you guys to check that video. But just in terms of a recap quickly, we talked about the scroll stopper. So we talked about like the full funnel. When you look at launching ads, you're going to look at the components in the ad itself. So we really dissected that last time. And I would encourage you guys to look at that part. Now, after that, when you look at the funnel, you have the ads, and then you have someone clicking, going to the store, converting, and then you have the backend with the email marketing. So I have all of these components, and we started with the ads. So at that ad level, and we mentioned the triangle, which is pretty much you need to improve those three things in your business. You have the conversion rate, you have your AOV or your price, and then you have your cost per click or your advertising or the platform you're using. And we've started with the platform. Now we're moving to the store.
Yeah. And so what we're, I guess, just to close off on that, what we're saying is assuming right now in your business, you've got your traffic sorted, like your traffic is coming in, you've got good creatives are working, they're very effective, and you're driving sufficient kind of like volume of traffic to your store at costs that are within your, benchmark kind of KPI for your business, then you want to advance into this next stage. And just really quickly before we jump into this, because this is going to be quite a technical episode, why is it so important, just to really drill this home, why is it so important to make sure that the traffic is done first? Like, what's the significance of making sure that's done?
It's pretty much because if your cost per click is high, you're pretty much paying a premium. And if you're paying a premium, let's say you have a problem in your business, like you're thinking, I need to fix, let's say, this window. But every time you bring in, like, let's say, someone, it just the costs are too high to even consider. Same thing when you have a problem in your, let's say, conversion rate, bringing in people, but they're pretty much expensive. You're paying a premium, so you can't keep bringing them and fixing and kind of getting that feedback. So
Mm.
focusing on I'd say the previous step is a way to make sure that we're kind of able to test things. So fixing the CPC or your cost per click would allow you to bring in more people to work on your landing page. If I was to keep the ads running at a $10 cost per click, it's going to be very expensive to bring in people to see my store every single time I have a person.
Yeah.
I'm paying pretty much $10. And I would look at decreasing that to a level where I can bring in a lot of people and I can
Mm.
change things in my store. So it's I would say it's almost like a requirement. You can't test your landing page if you have a very high cost per click or a very high cost per lead or a very whatever, let's say, the objective we're working on. You can't keep it if your costs are high.
Mm. And I think the only other thing to add to that is just like when you make changes at the very top of the funnel, usually the effects that you make are generally like they can be exponential in nature. Like you can take like the cost per click from $2 to $1. Like you just cut in half that cost.
Sure. Yes, your
It's very
marketing costs.
it's very challenging to do those same types of measurements on your conversion rate, on your average order value. 2x your average order value can be very difficult. So that's where you'll have the biggest impact on your business. So let's jump into this idea of conversion rate. So just really quickly, for those that might not be familiar with this idea, run through and just explain first things first. What does it mean, a conversion rate, and what is that really made up of overall?
So yeah, just our view on conversion rate, I think we align on this. It's pretty much, how many people you're converting when you send them to a store. You can think about it as pretty much you have, let's say, a physical shop, you have 100 people coming in, how many are actually exiting with a purchase? And that's the number. So if I have 5% conversion rate, it just means that out of 100, I converted 5. So every time you think about it, just pretty much the people that bought from your store, when we say a percentage, is out of 100 people. So 1% would be
Mm,
1 out of 100 and so on. So
mm,
that's pretty much the conversion rate.
mm. And with respect to conversion rate, I think this is a little bit of my kind of like opinion on this, but I think it's something that has it has so much power and control, because it's one of those things that once you do really focus on it and you get locked in, and say, for example, you get your conversion rate to 5% or 4%, whatever that might be, like it stays like that, you know? And so like you can continue driving traffic and like your conversion rate remains at that ultra profitable level, and your business like reaps the benefits continually in perpetuity.
Yes.
So it's such a significant thing to focus on. And I think I'm really excited for this episode to dive into how to break this down. So let's think about this from the I guess the top down perspective. We're driving traffic to our, you know, shop page. But first things first, where do you think the most appropriate kind of place is to drive the traffic? Do we drive them to the home page of the website where people see all the stuff about the whole entire website, or we drive them to the product page or landing page? What do you think?
So yeah, we do this like a lot of like kind of analysis in Ecom Capital. So you're looking at, hey, what is the best way? And we did test like based on the niche. So it's really depend on the business, on the products, on what we have. But what we noticed overall, you want to lower the number of, events that would happen before a person would see your offer. So that's kind of what you're looking at. Let's say you're sending traffic to a page, like a home page, and then they have to click on the like shop now and then click on another page and then go to like a blog
Mm,
post, and then that's a long like series of actions for you to get a conversion. So you want to lower that amount, particularly make it where to just go to the product page. Ideally in ecom it's just a much better structure. Or what we noticed, and probably we're going to talk about that a little bit, as we know we did this test in the back end, using a pre-lander, like just one page to kind of organize things, and they can click and buy from there. But that pre-lander is not necessarily creating friction. It's actually presenting a little bit more the product and giving them more ideas. So it's really, normally I would again mention all the time, let's lower the number of actions. But if you're doing like something before, it's kind of presenting better your product and you're really driving, I would say, more information, more value from that page, then you're going to get also significant returns from that. So it's really
mm.
lowering the actions and focusing on the value.
Got it. So what you're saying is essentially is we want to be able to shorten the amount of steps that people take when they
Yes.
initially start to learn about who we are until the moment that they can click purchase. Really, like that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
like overall in like we tested this a lot in like in the community with Ecom Capital. Like when you look at all the calls we do, we're pretty much looking at the results. Like this store did this test and we're like, hey, this is working, but let's just push it a little bit more and we
Mm,
do this extra step. So we're looking at always cutting on the friction. So it's always you go to the page and may just make a decision. But as I mentioned, there are some cases, specifically in the beauty space, where having a pre-lander, and it's again, this has been happening just recently, positioning that with more information actually allows to increase the conversion for some products.
mm,
So again, if you're launching your business, you're thinking, hey, what should I do? Most of the time, it's what you mentioned, really lowering the number of steps. But there are some things within that realm. So it's not just lowering the number of steps and like sending them to a page where there's nothing. It's really
mm.
making sure that you're guiding them a little bit in that, depending on the avatar. And I'm actually
Got it.
curious about overall, like your positioning in this, because I already kind of know. I know that you're really like aligned in terms of lowering the number of steps, but I'm
Mm.
curious about your view on this overall, like in terms of conversion rate and how you're
Yeah.
optimizing things.
Yeah, I think I mean every brand that I've run or launched into new traffic, it's always focused on very similar to what you mentioned there. And I guess like the overall objective is, I mean, as a rule of thumb with a new business, it'll be straight to the product page. Like that's just generally like I'm like, how can I take them from the ad? And I guess the key thing here as well is like I want to make sure that the ad and the image and the piece of content they see on the ad is the same thing that they see on that product page, because we want to kind of eliminate as many kind of like question marks where they're like, they saw the ad and they liked the ad, and then you push them into some random page where there's like six different variations or different
Exactly.
colors and different products. And they're like, oh, hold on a second. What was I here to do again? And so like you have like such a small amount of like time and opportunity to really capture that attention and retain that attention. And so the moment I think the analogy that I really like here is that, so if you ever go to like a movie cinema, right? And if you go to the movie cinema and you go to buy the tickets, and if you go to buy the tickets on your phone, I don't know if you've done it recently. I don't go to the movies too often, but last time I did, you sit there on your phone and it's the most horrible user experience, right? You're like zooming in and you're pinching in and out with your fingers and you're trying to click like the seat that you're sitting on and you're like, oh, not that seat. Oh, someone took the seat, and it's horrible. And so it's like that would be the only time and the only thing that I can think of in today's current day and age where consumers will sit there and they'll put up with a shit experience online, right? And like every single time I go to the movies, or I ever go to the movies, I'm like, oh my God, the thing again. Oh, this is horrible. I'll get my
Have to
wife to do,
click.
I'll get someone else. I'm like, just get rid of it. I
Yeah,
don't want to do this. And it's like,
yeah,
you don't have the luxury of, with your brand, people will just be like, the moment there's a disconnect, the moment there's something they don't understand, the
you
moment there's
lost
like
them.
friction, gone. And so I think that's the nature of like this game is like, how do I capture attention hyper effectively, and then the moment I've captured it, I need to retain it, and I need to then continue like bringing people through to that next step, and almost like baiting them next, and you're just leading them along that little trail of breadcrumbs to eventually get to the point that you really want to. So
Yeah.
that's my position overall. Generally, first things first, as a rule of thumb, it'll always be directed to the product page. I just find it like it's simple. I want to make sure they're very congruent in terms of like make sure the ad lines up with everything on the product page, which we'll talk about more later in terms of images. But that's my general kind of philosophy on the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm always like looking at like the examples you mentioned are really good, like really the experience and when you lose, you lose. And you actually, I think as an entrepreneur, you mentioned this like many times, you should observe things around you. And pretty much like
Yeah.
what you mentioned right now is an example. Like this is like the same thing, and here we can apply it a little bit differently. And I think that's just like that's how you should look at things in general. You have a little bit of time, like it's a small opportunity.
Correct.
Every click is a person, and you're not looking at it from that angle. Like I have a lot of traffic, and you're not thinking it's just people. They're coming to a store and you lost them, and your goal is to convert them. So yeah, very, very, very
Yeah.
exciting.
And I think the other thing that I think is quite interesting, I heard this recently, and I think it's a fantastic reminder for most people, because what happens is like you might you might look at your product page or your website or your landing page, and you look at it and you're like, oh, like it looks good.
Yes,
Oh,
and
like yeah, it's nice. Like, and the thing is with it, there's another epic book that I love. One of my most favorite books. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim. And in the book, he talks about this example where there was this massive like lolly factory, and what happened was there was a CEO of the lolly factory, and he built the company from scratch. He was like the founder, right? And then what happened was he elected a new CEO, this big corporate, high flying CEO came in, said, "Look, we're going to make this more profitable. We're really going to, lean this thing out, strip it back to the basics." Increase the profits, make all the shareholders very, very happy. And so what happened was he brought all of the team of engineers and all the people who were making all the lollies, and he said, look, we're going to bring the cost down, and we're going to start removing the ingredients out of the sweets, right? And all the engineers were freaking out. They're like, we can't do this. It's been running like this for years. It works really well. The customers love it. The shareholders love it. And so what he did was he started stripping like one ingredient, and then he would watch the market, nothing would happen. And then he'd taste the sweets. He'd be like, oh, it tastes good. It's fine. No problem at all. And then so he just like kept removing one ingredient, one after one after one after. And he did this for like 1 quarter, 2 quarters, no shift in performance, nothing changed in the business. And all the engineers now, they're really, really happy because they're taking home bonuses. They're taking home all this extra profit. Everyone's loving it. And then what happened was, all of a sudden, the stock price just started like, tanking and going through the floor. And the engineers are running around crazy. And then they end up stripping out like 14, 15 different ingredients out of the sweets, increase the profits massively. And then what happened was they weren't actually testing against the control. Every single time they would remove an ingredient, they would test it against the previous version.
okay, so
So
you're changing everything.
right? And so it's like, well, I'm going to taste it now against the previous one, and then I'm going to taste that one against the next one, and that one against the next one. So it
You're-
became this Frankenstein lolly, right? And then the CEO is like sitting down there at his desk, and he's like, "What is wrong? This is horrible." And so he got a new bag of these lollies off his desk, and he put it in his mouth, and it was hard, and it broke, and it was crap, and he's like, "This is horrible." And then he grabbed one of the old bags, the very, very old ones that he had next to him, and he tried that one. He's like, this is amazing. And he realized the error. And so I guess the lesson of that story is that, like, when you're the founder, sometimes you can't see because you're so
Yes,
in it and you're there and you're making changes, and you make a change and you change some color and you change an image and you don't even
yes,
know the history of the changes. And it's like you could be sinking your ship because you're not actually
exactly.
tracking what you're doing. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. I actually, that's why I do the tracker. Like pretty much if you're doing things and you're like, hey, changing, you end up like running something that just is just like a series of changes that you can't track. And that's a problem.
Mm,
Now, you mentioned another thing, like the conversion rate. A lot of people would think about like this is a good page, right? And or they have a 1% conversion rate, like, hey, at 1%, that should be good. So you're kind of always assuming the numbers in it, like this is good, while you don't really know what is good and what it's not. And again,
correct.
versus others, because other stores are not sharing with you what they're doing. And that's why
Correct.
I think that's actually I think something we observed like over like a long run. You should really look at businesses that are having exposure to different stores, or at least different, I would say, options that they can give you like a little bit ways a bar. Because otherwise you're
Mm,
testing things like, hey, my page is really good. I have like 5% conversion rate. But if you're not talking to business owners that are doing 10, 15, 20%
correct.
conversion rate,
Correct.
you actually don't think that exists. Like it's pretty much like I heard about it. I don't think it's really happening. And you mentioned conversion rate, once you fix it, it's kind of done. Like it's going to be stable because you're kind of fixing like your, the bit like when you have like a car
Correct.
that's working, it's not going to be just like it's just there's like a, I would say, a movement that would happen and you can rely on it. Now, that's how
Correct.
I see the conversion rate. If it's fixed, it should be working. And most of the time, you don't have a standard. You think, hey, this is good, but there's always room for improvement. And this is something that I've seen many times. I'm coming in, I'm like, hey, I think the conversion rate should be at 5, but like they're saying 1% is our max. We can never get to 5. It's impossible. And then 1 year later, we're like 4 or 5, like, hey, it was achievable. We should just put that as a goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the
And,
beauty of
and
it.
it's exactly why the value of, like, our community is so powerful, because people come in and they see, oh, like, I thought my business was good, but oh my God, that person's doing this and their price is
Yes.
even more than mine. Like, geez, I really better start charging more. I better start doing these things. And they start to elevate their standards. So it's very, very powerful.
Yes, I
Like it
think
a
if you
lot.
come to a community, you should really try to chase. I want to see who is the top in the community and how to
Oh
compete with
God,
them.
yeah.
Because it's like you're getting access to the person. Like I think overall community and kind of specifically with business owners, you're gonna learn by just observing. And that value, I call it like kind of the invisible value. It's
Mm,
insane. Like you come to a let's say a meeting and you have another business owner that's let's say doing double your conversion rate. And they might just tell you this one thing, this small thing took my
yeah,
conversion from this to this, and that double your sales for the next 2 years or 3 years. And that's just a meeting, just like 5 minutes. And that's
correct.
kind of the value I would say of getting exposure to others, particularly in a
Mm,
community where they're doing the same thing. So you're not coming in and hearing about, let's say, history where you're specialized in accounting. It's like we're talking about the same
correct.
thing. So we're really
Correct.
tackling the same subject.
Yeah, love it. So let's get maybe a little bit more practical for people in terms of, like, let's say now if we were to start at some of the most fundamental things that would influence a conversion rate, and then we'll start to work down almost like the page, so to speak, assuming we're now focusing on the product page, we're looking at these things.
Yes.
What are some of the areas? What are some of the boxes that you need to check these things to make sure you're going to get the maximum results?
Yeah, so first thing you should focus on in your page, make sure that you don't have any grammar or any issues in terms of just your landing page that just by default you need to
Yeah.
like I've seen cases where a person would launch the page and like, hey, it's good, I'll check it. Like we have issues here. You didn't
Mm,
write this word properly, or they just forgot about some sections, or like those are the things that are, I would say, kind of almost like you're disqualifying yourself in terms of your,
yeah.
your traffic. And you should really start by looking at I need to be obsessive about my landing page. I've never seen a business owner makes money consistently and they're not obsessive about everything in their business, particularly
Correct.
the landing page, because that's what others would see. Think about this, you're going to a party tomorrow and you want to look good, and then you're coming in and you don't even like you're not checking everything. You're just like waking up and jumping to the party, and you're not like wearing what you wanted and like, hey, I look good, but did you check yourself in the mirror? Did you double check? Did you like normally
Did you
that's how I
brush your
would see.
teeth?
Yes, it's like you need to check the minimums, and I think people would run the ads actually without brushing their teeth. Like it's like kind of you're
Yeah.
not checking the landing
Yeah.
page. Did you check your page? Like, yeah, I checked it quickly. Did you really? And that's I think the
Mm,
first thing to focus on. Do we have a grammar mistake? Do you have like something that's off? Check your page, make sure it's just everything is aligned. Another thing would be, and we talked about this a lot, your pricing, particularly your offer. So I
Mm,
think the pricing is kind of the element that would move the needle for any business, because that's how you're
mm,
positioning yourself. I would say, and I think we talked about this a little bit, if you're starting out, you need to be competitive in the pricing so that we don't like we can optimize things around that, and then we can start kind of pushing that. So the testing and the
correct.
pricing initially, I would say it's easier to start low and go high than start really high and you're like, hey, I'm like really like having trouble, I can't convert, and maybe it's actually your page, maybe it's actually something else, and you're like almost like worried about 10 things while you should be worried about one thing. So I think the
Correct.
pricing, I would
Correct.
probably position it on the lower side. And I think this is something that you align on in terms of just like the pricing, right? So just like starting low
Yeah.
and then gradually increasing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is interesting because obviously at the moment we're talking about, you know, the profit series. So starting, like, for example, talking about the profit series, but then talking about, lowering your price to increase conversion rate. I think like the fundamental thing to I guess note here is that like business is a long-term play, and I don't really plan to be in business for like 6 months or 12 months or 2 years. It's like I plan to be in business for decades and decades, right? And so if that's the way that you're playing the game, it's like, would you not prefer to have 1 or 2 months of, subpar, maybe break even, maybe lose money performance in exchange for continued kind of like profitability, because you know and understand some of the inner workings of your business, you know and understand the price sensitivity of your audience, you know and understand what type of landing page structure. And I think that's probably the core thing to kind of flesh out there, is that like I'll always like look to sell a product almost at a break even, maybe a 10% kind of like margin to begin with, because especially if I'm launching a brand new store, I'm like, let's push volume, let's get sales through, let's activate that pixel, let's send the signals through so I know that the thing is working, right? And then once I've got that happening, I've got the activity, I've got the actual signal in the pixel. Meta or Google, whatever, is actually been told these are the types of customers we go after. These are the types of creatives. The funnel is working. Let's now start to increase the pricing and start to add extra layers onto that overall position so you have more profit. So very much
Absolutely.
aligned with what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like when you're starting out again, I don't say that you need to keep this for like a long period. It's just you want to remove all the doubts in terms of your landing page, in terms of your
Correct.
offer, in terms of your product. So I want to start a little bit more aggressive. Most of the time, I don't necessarily just work on the pricing. I would also add in, for example, the offer. So if I was to do a buy one, get one free as a launch, then I will do that just because I know that's the best offer potentially for my market. So it's really looking at how can you remove the friction initially so that you can optimize better. Now, in terms of profit,
Mm,
and you mentioned this is not the short-term play. I'm looking to get my best conversion rate, and then I'll push the pricing, and I'll see the impact. And that's, I think, like a strong element in terms of what you're working on. So it's really long-term, stable business rather than, hey, I'll just start high, and then I don't actually know like how to navigate this. No conversions, and I'm spending on ads. I don't know. I'm not getting signals technically of my audience, so I don't know what's working. So I think that that's just a good way to start initially. Now, in some cases, you can also look at it in terms of your competition. So you can see their pricing. And if you start with their price and you have a, let's say, a good offer, then that's also like kind of giving them like a lower price. So I would say looking at the
mm,
competition, I don't necessarily ignore the competition. You can compete with using like while using their price and positioning a much better offer, just kind of come back to that reduction in price. So I think those are kind
exactly.
of the view on this. And yeah, it's really an important element if you're focusing on your conversion rate, particularly on
Mm.
the offer.
So then, okay, let's say for example, we've kind of like looked at that price, and let's say for example, on this current business we're looking at, even if we take like Basu as an example, or any of the brands that we've worked on, we're doing 40, $50,000 a month. And now my traffic's consistent, my pricing, okay, my pricing's good, but I really want to start like, getting into some specifics on how can I move the needle, how can I improve conversion, how can I really lift my numbers on this page so I can get better and better results. What would you think would be
Yes.
the next step from here?
So yes, so for Bisu as an example, which is a business that's doing 40, 50K a month, and it's actually a case where you see a high conversion rate within profit target. So we're not talking about that 10% extra, but if I was to look at over time, the conversion rate actually went up, right? And
Mm,
overall, uh, how I look at things is, as you mentioned, you need to bring in traffic and analyze things. Now, in Bisu
mm,
case, we have that formula. So we kind of built the testing and we know exactly how you can, have that high conversion rate. But I would
yep.
say overall, when you're launching, you're kind of building that map. Like you need to get your conversion rate up and really understand how your audience would react to things that you add in your page. And
Yeah.
again, in the case of Bisu, very high conversion rate. Like we have a
Mm,
7.9% conversion rate, which I would say
mm,
it's really within like I would say on the higher end with ecom. So we look at most of the
definitely.
time conversion rate that are above 5. When you have like I would say an 8 to 10, that's a very good
Mm,
conversion rate if you're running an
yeah.
AOV of plus $50, I would say,
Yeah.
particularly in the beauty space. So that's I
Yeah.
think like a strong element.
Definitely. And so for those that are maybe just listening in and not watching the video here, so we're just breaking down and having a look at the actual store itself in the back end at the moment. And this will be available on the actual YouTube version. You can check that out there. And we're just going to also break down now this landing page, because this is the current landing page that all the traffic is driven to. And so we're just going to kind of piece by piece work through this just to explain this as much as possible, so everyone listening in can kind of get as much value from this in terms of how you might be able to make adjustments to your landing pages, to your shop pages, to increase conversion rate as well. So
Yes,
maybe let's
absolutely.
start at the top here, Hammond, in terms of like this main, for those that are just listening, we've got a landing page here that is it's not a traditional shop page. This is a landing page that's built on
Yes.
Zipify, I believe it is, the page builder. And so it's a very
Yes.
simple and easy kind of like page builder that allows you to test different variations of
Yes.
landing pages.
So yeah, you really need to think about like the page overall, like what's the value that we're doing here. And in this case, you can think about like the structure we have, which we're not necessarily sending directly to the product page. So it's actually a pre-lander. And in this pre-lander, we have some information on pretty much like what people are looking for. Like we're kind of explaining the value like of the product. And also
Mm,
if you look at like overall the value equation by Alex Hermosi, which I think is a strong one in terms of positioning for the offers, is you're looking at what is the desired outcome of your audience when they look at your page? And in this case, for Bisu, if you were to go to the page, like if you go to bisu.com and you can kind of like .au and check the product page and everything, you're going to see that in the pre-lander, we have right away the desired outcome, like effortlessly remove makeup with just water. That's strong,
mm,
like you can kind of see the desired outcome. I can kind of see it. And this is again
right.
without any, let's say, chemicals, which is a strong positioning on the desired outcome. So a person that, let's say, the avatar looking at this, they're gonna be like, hey, this is what I want. It's effortless, like it's like just fast, and I don't have to waste time, energy to do this, and it's not harmful. So you have like a
Correct.
strong positioning right away. And I think the text, if you look at the page, like that dream outcome is positioned right away. And that's, in
Mm,
my opinion, a strong way in terms of your conversion rate, particularly in the beauty space. So if you have a product in that category, I would encourage you to think about a pre-lander and the desired outcome. Like, what is your audience looking for? Are they looking for, let's say, a better skin? Start with that. Mention, hey, this
mm,
is gonna get you this within this time frame. And if you put that
mm,
really strongly, and if you see the ads with Bisu, you're gonna see that sometimes we mention instant results and things like that, and just to
correct.
increase kind of the that desired outcome, how fast you can get it. And that would increase your conversion rate.
Mm. And I think the key thing, if we just before we scroll down here, so for those that are listening in, if you're looking, if you're thinking about your landing page, and if you notice this overall, even if you kind of might recall like scrolling on your phone, right? And if you're looking at the screen of your phone, and say for example, you've just read a whole bunch of text and you've seen a headline and you've seen some content that you like, okay? You don't want to have to search through that whole page that you're on to find the button to press to go to the next step, right? You want to see that thing right in front of you. And I think one basic kind of like tenet of conversion rate optimization is to, similar to what we discussed earlier in terms of reducing the steps. And so if I'm on the page and I'm scrolling through the page and I find enough information for me to say, I think I think I'm going to buy this product, because people reach a certain threshold where they've seen enough and they've seen enough and they've seen enough and they feel a certain way, like it could actually get the result they want, and then they buy, right? And so the thing is with that, the certainty that people have, that kind of impulsive certainty that's built on some information, some emotion, some images, some content, some copy, it kind of goes in peaks and waves and troughs, right? And so like as people are scrolling through this page, right, they want to be increasing their level of certainty through the information, increasing the level that they're like, this is really going to work for me. like this really could help me with my skin. This could actually be very effective to remove my makeup and actually clear my skin. And so we want to start to increase that belief and help them to realize that dream outcome. And we want to make sure the moment that they reach that kind of promised land moment of, I think I'm going to buy this, yes, there's an opportunity by way of a button for them to click on straight away. And so that 101 kind of practice there is to make sure at each of the folds in your page, there are opportunities for people to actually take action and click the button and go to the next step and move through the process. Because if they don't, and they need to start scrolling through your page to try and find the thing that they're looking for, likely they're going to start to get a little bit just bored and they'll click somewhere else. And next thing they're back on Instagram watching reels again. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, it's very important to look at, just come back to the data here. And I know that some of you guys are listening, and I would encourage you to look at the YouTube just to kind of see the visual of everything we're mentioning here. But really, if you look at your conversion rate, you have different layers, and I'll be very kind of like going over these charts. So you have your add to cart rate. If you go to your Shopify right now and load the analytics and pretty much look at the online store conversion rate section, you're going to see that you have an add to cart rate. That
Mm,
add to cart rate is pretty much the how your offer is good. If I was like thinking, hey, is my pricing good? If my add to cart rate is low, people are not adding to cart. If they're not adding to cart,
mm,
it just means that they're not, the price, they're not accepting it. Like pretty much I think
correct.
about it, you come to my store, you don't do anything and you just leave. There's something like you didn't
Correct.
accept the price. So I didn't position a good price pretty much. And you don't even like think about your audience like that. They come to your store, they look at your price, I'm like, hey, it's not good. I'm just not doing anything and they leave. So for me, the
Yep.
add to cart rate is the strongest one. A good add to cart rate, and I mentioned this, I think we mentioned this like in the last like episode, but it's pretty much targeting something in the like I would say 5% plus. But ideally, if you're 10% plus, then you're really hitting a good I would say offer. So if I was thinking
Absolutely.
my pricing is good, I should be 10% add to cart and above. If that's the case,
Yep.
my pricing is accepted. And if you have a price that's, you mentioned, hey, I have actually a super low price. What's your add to cart rate? 1%. Your audience is not thinking the same. They're actually
Yeah,
thinking
exactly. Mm,
either you're not displaying value, like you're telling them, hey, this is the price, but they're not thinking that they're thinking, hey, this price is not necessarily, I don't believe in it. There's like a lack of value. They don't trust you enough.
mm,
And you're
mm,
gonna think about this again. This is like the add to cart easy positioning in terms of offer, in terms of pricing, in terms of trust. So all of them
mm,
combined, but the pricing most of the time would be the strongest of all. So that's
correct.
my view in terms of the sections. And then we have the checkout, which is how many people actually moved from that add to cart level to the checkout level. Most of the
Yeah,
time, if you're running an ecom store, and I'll tell you the benchmarks, you're going to lose half of the people in every stage. So if
correct.
you have 10%, you're going to be at 5 at checkout, and then you're going to end up with 2.5%. That's again just
Correct.
average. Drop off 50-50, you're going to lose 50%. If you're losing more than that from the checkout to conversion, you're charging shipping. You're charging like this sales tax in your checkout process, you have a problem. And when we're in a coaching session or we're helping someone in the community, we're pretty much tackling on those ingredients. So we're pretty much like going on a call, like, hey, your add to cart is not good. Let's work on the pricing. So I don't want you to focus on anything else. You can put all your effort into one placement. And this is if you guys want to really explore things and take your business to the next level, you should look at the big billionaires. For example, Elon Musk, one of the things he does in every business, he pretty much re-engineer things like, hey, I want to see all the moving parts. And he kind of figured out, hey, this part here, the add to cart rate is not strong. Let's just do more of that and ignore all the rest.
Correct.
This is what
Correct.
he does like in every business. So I want you guys
Mm.
to really think about it like that. And yeah, this was a great example from a great landing page. Do you want to tackle
Maybe
maybe?
let's have a quick look at the actual shop page itself as well, Hammond.
Yes,
Let's just go to that one in terms of yeah,
absolutely.
just one of these shop pages, and we'll just quickly because I think this is a very good example as well here of just some really good practices. And so for those listening, if we're looking to optimize your landing page and create some of the best experiences from a conversion perspective, again, if you're only listening to the audio, a few key things here that we've got in the first fold, like the moment that you actually land on the shop page. Number one, which I think is absolutely critical more and more and more these days, is very, very, very high resolution, high quality images that
Yes.
give people the closest demonstration to what it would be like to touch the product. Right. If you think about when you go into a retail store, you go in and pick up the fabric and you try it on and you run it through your fingers and you maybe you smell it, maybe you go into the change rooms and you put it on. So there's a whole experience there that people miss through the online shopping experience. And so the images and the congruence again from the ad until the shop page image is one of the most important things. There's a story that I mentioned around the Oz Fishing brand. And so what we did was we actually had we used mock-up designs, right? Mock-ups in terms of just like they were literally just like design templates, and we used those on our shop pages to sell the product. And then what happened was we did this test batch run with a new supplier. Now, the new supplier printed a whole bunch of these shirts, and the shirts were like a couple of shades darker than the actual mock-up version. So the mock-up was a little bit gray, a little bit charcoal kind of like color on this particular design. And then the actual shirt was probably 2 or 3 shades darker, but noticeably. Like if you put them side by side, it'd be like, oh, interesting. Like, is that a little bit darker? And then what happened was we got this whole batch of new shirts, and I did a big photo shoot with a lot of like real life people, real life, potential customers, the avatars. And then what happened was we started demonstrating all of these images on the product page of people wearing the actual shirt with the real color, and the conversion rate went down, right? And I looked at it very closely because what was happening was in the Hotjar analysis, people were going through the first 2 photos, which were still the mock-ups, which were slightly gray. And then the third photo was one of the models in the studio wearing the shirt. And then the shirt he was wearing was slightly darker, right? And it was very interesting because you'd watch all of these pathways on the Hotjar, and they'd click 1, they'd click 2, they'd click 3, and they'd click the heck out of that third image, and then
And they're
they'd
like, hey,
bounce
that's yes.
and
So
they
and that's
bounce
a
and they
detail,
bounce
and that's a
and they
detail, and
bounce.
that's a
And I
detail.
was like, this is such a small detail. Like there's a few points of difference in the color versus one image versus the other one. And so the message here, I guess, is people want to trust what it is that they're buying. And so the way they trust is through those images. The way they trust is being able to look and see and be like, wow, like I really feel like I'm going to get what I'm paying for. So images, I mean, for me, Hammond, I think images is
Yes.
crucially important. Anything else you wanted to add to that on your end?
Absolutely. So yeah, the we mentioned this like with the obsession about the details. Like you can't just do a regular like I'll just upload anything there and we'll look at the ads because I've seen many cases where we have a great, let's say, media buying capability. So you know how to run the ads, you know how to do things, but and you feel like I'm working hard, I'm not making profit. It's very difficult. But then you're running with a car that's not optimized, and then you pushing, it just you need to work on things. So you need to be really obsessive about every component of your business. And
Correct.
you need also to compare it to what's working. For example, a person
Correct.
would not necessarily worry about, let's say, the quality of the images, or they would not worry too much about how we're structuring things in this landing page, which I think that
Correct.
sharing this landing page already and our structure and then our numbers is making this pretty much like a this is a 6 figure to 7 figure just view on what we're doing with one brand, right? And you can
Correct.
see it like, hey, if you're not like absorbing this, I'm like, hey, I'm learning so much from just this like this small, I would say, episode. Think about every single day looking at different things and optimizing our strategies. And pretty much we're looking in the next level by getting just more volume because we have
Mm,
information on what's working and what's not. So I would really think about this, hey, this is just a start. So you need to be obsessive.
exactly. Exactly. And I think the other thing to add to up the top there that we have, which I think is really quite powerful. So
Yes.
in
The
this top of
testimonial.
fold, like this, yeah, precisely this first fold section, one thing that we did implement on both of our brands here is this kind of like quote or testimony that's like on the right hand side of the buy box, just above that buy box. And it's just a testimony, or it's a quote, or it's a message, or an email, or something that's been sent from one of your customers into, maybe it's your email, maybe it's on social media, and it's just capturing that and putting that right above the main headline of that product title. And I always like to think of this like it's kind of like rose-colored glasses, and you're almost creating this perspective for people to look through. You're creating this like frame. It's like you land on this site, and one of the first things you read is Basu absolutely transformed my routine. My skin has vastly improved since using these cloths. I love them. And so the moment you read that, even if you don't fully read it, you're still in this position where your sentiment for the product increases, and you're like, Wow. Well, that sounds very genuine. I really believe that person because she's not selling me, but she definitely said some good things. So I'm more inclined to look at this with a positive lens, and it's very, very powerful.
Absolutely. And if you think about this page, everything was engineered. Like this is not like just randomly positioning things. Keep in mind
Mm,
that things are tested, split tested. You look at the conversion rate, you analyze things,
correct.
and everything here positioned in a specific way for that specific audience. So it's not like you just
Mm,
take, hey, I'll just do the same thing, I'll just copy paste everything here. It doesn't
correct.
work like that. This is adapted to pursue audience. If I was running
Mm,
with, let's say, another store and we're targeting another audience, then we're adapting it based on who's the avatar. So really keep
correct.
that in mind when you're looking at, hey, I want to improve my conversion rate. I'll just pretty much like copy paste everything I hear. It doesn't work like
Yeah.
that. You need to really optimize based on your avatar. There are some things that you should have, like a testimonial. So if you think about rather than like the exact, I would say copy, but think about like what are the elements that you need. You need a testimonial in your landing page. You need high quality images. You need a price that is competitive. And here we actually have it. And you need some trust in general in terms of the brand and the feel of it, which
Mm,
is really strong in that element. And in the end, if you have all of these ingredients and you have a good ad and you have a good pre-lander and you're running ads the right way, then you're gonna have amazing performance. And that's what I would think
mm.
about as all the ingredients for the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the fundamentals here we've kind of covered off on in a fair bit
Yes.
of detail. And for those, again, listening, I really would encourage, maybe we'll put it into the show notes below the episode so you can go and check out some of these websites and have a look at these and understand what we've gone through here in terms of breaking these things down because it is also very powerful. Maybe, Hammond, what might be interesting is to maybe look at that other brand that we discussed as just a reference of perhaps some of the things that might not be as effective. And what we'll
Yes.
do for those listening again, we'll pop this into the notes below. You can have a look at this and you can just check out through these brands and see the differences on the actual product pages to see what's effective and see what might not be effective. Again, we're looking at one brand because we own it and it's like we can see all the data. And then the other brand, this is more so a very cosmetic from the surface view of the brand without knowing the data. And we'll kind of give some commentary on this one here.
Yes, it's just again, it's not a brand that like the second one, the one I'm showing right now, it's not a person in the community. I just picked this brand just to look at a comparison of a good landing page versus a page where I see there are a lot of things that we can improve. So
Mm,
I looked carefully at what they have and I looked at the similar webs. They're doing about, I would say on average 8,000 visitors. So it's a good volume. So that person is
got it.
bringing traffic. So I didn't necessarily pick a page where we don't have any volume or anything. So it's really, I'm
Got it.
looking at a brand that's doing something, but I see that we can improve it. Now, the
Mm,
brand itself, and I think we talked about this a little bit earlier in terms of like the view on elements, we have so much information when you land the page, like so many things. Like you're pretty much like
mm,
there's no testimonials and you're just bombarded with information, which most of the time I will try to lower. Like if you remember Bisu, we go to a page and we're like, it's simple. Just text going
yeah.
over like the dream outcome. Here, I don't see the
Yeah.
dream outcome and I'm seeing just a lot of information, like buttons
Yeah.
and there's like blocks. And I would say if you look at implementing everything, like think about like you're doing a dish, like you're cooking tomorrow, and you hear that salad is a mix of things, and like, hey, I want to do this, and you kind of bring everything in one place and just trying to do like like putting in the blender and just trying to drink it, like, hey, just mixing everything, right? I feel like it's the same thing. The person went to the, let's say, mall, bought everything, brought it back. This should be all the components of this good, let's say,
Yeah.
dish, and just put it in place, run it, and try to drink it. So I
That's
think that's
actually that's
how.
actually a really good example. I feel like it's like for example, like you can cook like a recipe and you can put all of the say for example you put all the right ingredients into the dish at the same time rather than in the right sequence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like sequencing really matters.
Yeah.
It really will change the outcome tremendously. It's a really good analogy. Yeah. And I think one thing that they've done here is it's just it's very the thing is like the confused mind will never buy. And this immediate product page, like when you land on this thing, there's so many things happening here. There's the description, there's this big offer that is written over like 3 lines, very confusing to kind of look at. You can't really understand what's happening. There's the pro scrunchie, 2 extra hair ties included for free in the next one order. It looks I'm just like scratching my head a little bit. I'm like, is that real? And the other thing that's a big standout for me, which I think could definitely be improved. So on the image side of things, they have some really good quality images, I would say. Now, the thing that people want to see here when it comes to images, generally speaking, is a number of different images. So it's like number one is like a nice white background, which is what they've kind of got here. Number two is kind of like a use case. So it's like this product, it's like a hairbrush type, instrument, and it's like used in the hair. And so I want to see what that looks like in my hair. I want to see how big that thing is in my hand. I want to know like how long those like little like stems are away from my head. I want to see that experience. And I think that's very, very important for people's kind of buying decision making behavior. And then the third one is kind of the unboxing. If they can see a little bit of that experience of like, this is the box that it's going to come in, this is how it's going to be packed, this is the amazing kind of inclusions, it's going to be wrapped in this beautiful kind of like tissue paper. They see the future state already being in their hands. And so it's like, oh wow, like so I can see the beautiful product, I can see myself using the product, I can see how it's going to come to me, right? And then any other images that you can add in terms of like close-up details. So with this example, maybe it's some close-ups of like inside of that actual brush, little like top of the hairbrush there itself. There's some close-ups of that technology, or maybe there's a breakdown of the specific red light therapy on a right-hand side angle broken down. There's some little arrows pointing to, low frequency, high frequency red light therapy that penetrates into the scalp and helps you to grow, because people can really see the value then. And these things are kind of missing in the images because it's all just the same, but with some
Yeah, they
random
also have like the
text.
same images twice, which is like, hey, we're repeating ourselves here in terms of like just same thing multiple times with different colors.
Correct.
But yeah,
Correct.
absolutely. Page itself, again, it's not necessarily a bad landing page like to the extremes, but it's like you're putting everything in one place and you probably like just didn't align them. And specifically the offer. Like I still don't understand what is the offer here. Buy one, get one, plus two, plus one. That's not, you don't want to
Yeah.
have like a lot of like a mathematic in this. You want to just make it simple. And that's I think also the like how to position something in a way where it's just simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And one thing we
Agreed.
talked about, which is I think in conversion rate, the process of elimination is a strong one. So trying to remove layers rather than adding them. And in this case, we probably need to do that like many times, like reducing the elements and kind of make it simple. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a great view on this.
No, very good, very, very good. And what we will do, I think we'll capture these kinds of screen recording examples. And again, if you're listening to this only on audio, definitely refer to the YouTube version and have a watch of it so you can actually see some of the demonstrations and actually watch what we're doing and discussing here. Obviously, it'll be a lot more beneficial for you to see what we're talking about and discussing. But I feel like we could go into this for many more hours, Hammond. Are there maybe a few more fundamentals that we can kind of tie off on in terms of this conversion rate focus concept for this session?
Yes, absolutely. So just to kind of sum up the focus for in the landing page, you need to position something like an offer that, as we talked about it, like a almost like removing all the friction, an offer that
Mm,
making sense for your audience. Reducing the price is not bad initially, just making sure that you get all the ingredients right. Now, another thing is analyzing your numbers, particularly add to cart, checkout drop off, and conversions. Having the testimonials, we mentioned about the like the things, quality images,
yep.
testimonials, pretty much a simple offer, not necessarily complicating things, and not having like a lot of information in one landing page. And I think
Mm,
if you gather everything that we talked about, high quality images, good offer, and the structure of the page being with testimonials, so actually showing that desired outcome, you're going to get a good
yeah.
conversion rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just to close off on in terms of like the copy overall, like is it important in your perspective to have like lots of copy? Is it important for people to have like lots of text around, I guess like describing the product? Like, what's your thoughts around this?
So it really depends on the niche, but let's say in general, I try to focus on the copy, like in terms of just volume, I try to lower that in general for some products. I try to position more
Yeah.
visuals because I know that if you look at the best conversion rates in the market, most of the time, let's say we look at Amazon as an example, where the trust level is 100%, like nearly. And then
Mm,
they're just buying when they look at the landing pages, like the decision making is pretty much not because of the trust, it's more of because
correct.
of the content. And they focus
Correct.
so much, like landing pages in Amazon they focus so much on visuals. Like they try to
Correct.
show you like high like lifestyle images. And for me, that was a strong indication on the copy is important. I'll just make sure that I don't have a lot of things that are like this example where so much information. I'll try to just make it more visuals, like they can see it and they can feel it. And I
Yep.
think that's going to be what I will look at in terms of ecom in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely agree. I think the my probably perspective on that a little bit is also when the cost of the product is like higher, then that kind of like necessitates larger amounts of like copy on the page as well. Because like obviously when you have higher ticket products and you're selling higher ticket products, it kind of demands more and more and more kind of like selling power. There's one really good example I'd love to share. Let me just pull this up. And I often use this example because I feel like it's just fantastic in the way that they are able to structure their landing pages. I'll pull this up and I'll just share my screen. So here we go. What can work? And this is funny. I've been threatening to buy one of these products for a long time, and I still have not yet bought one. I think I need to buy first the standing desk, and then I can buy the under desk treadmill. So I'll share my screen, and so we can see here this product, $849. So substantially higher in terms of the price point overall. But the thing that I really like about this in terms of the way the landing page is structured. So number one, it's a much higher ticket product, nearly $900. They have a live kind of like chat right there. You can
So you can
call them
reach out right
immediately and
away.
actually make sure like, hey, like, do you want to speak to us right away? Like we're here to speak to you right now. Pretty decent kind of setup in terms of the buy box. Obviously, the reviews there are not like amazing, so this is probably some kind of area of concern a little bit. Images in terms of like the use case images, very strong. You can really see this is how it's going to be. That's where it's going to be in your home. This is how big it is. That's how
Showing
it
you the
folds
desired
up.
outcome. You can see it,
Right?
the
You
outcome.
see it. You see it all.
Yes.
And this gets and this is interesting because notice it starts to get more technical into these design and these like internal images of like the motor and everything inside of the actual treadmill itself, which most people wouldn't care about except the people that do care, right?
Yeah.
And when you're buying like a $1,000 product, especially online, you want to know the details.
Yes.
And so as we go down this page, it continues to get more and more sophisticated in the information. So the top is kind of like high level, not tons of like really heavy sophisticated information. There's enough there to make a decision. There's a in stock, there's a call button, there's great images. You can get your discount code and all those good things. And then as you
Yes.
go down, we've got this customer satisfaction awards. I'm like, wow, this is really good. There's a small
Yes.
video that you can see it in action. We've got the lifestyle image, which is
They're
fantastic,
positioning everything.
right? You can see like this is just like me. That's going to be me in my home walking on my
Yes.
treadmill. Wow, I could really see that. You see it tucked away because one of the biggest concerns there is always space. How big is this thing
Yes.
going to be? Am I going to be able to
And this
store
is
it?
not
Okay, so
random. Keep in mind, this is not random.
oh,
Everything is
absolutely
positioned.
strategically, systematically tested. And then we go into some of these features, right? Again, getting more and more sophisticated and more technical because the thing is, the people that need more information, they'll scroll further down, right?
Yes.
And so as you continue down, we've got the walking platform, the safe and silent. We've got and then we've got this breakdown of the chip and the brushless motor. I don't even know what the chip means or the brushless motor, but you look at this and all of a sudden you're like,
Yes.
wow, I
That
feel
seems,
I
yes.
feel intelligent purchasing this product now,
Yes.
right?
I think they're also playing a lot on, like, if you look at, let's say, the best landing page in the world, they have Apple, for example, they're really
Yeah.
playing on showing you sometimes like
Correct.
side
Correct.
and you're scrolling down like, hey, wow, my phone
Correct.
actually is composed like this. And
Exactly.
they're doing this. They're doing the same thing, which I feel like when you're doing a landing page, you need to position things. You need to show what you're selling and show
Yeah.
your audience what they should expect from you.
I 100% agree. I think they've done a genius. And then there's an app here that they talk you through. There's all the specifications of the whole entire model. You can download a product manual if you want to actually, look at the whole entire
Yes.
entire thing, the user manual,
Yep.
if you want to look through the
Because they know
whole
the
entire.
price. They know that if you're paying above, let's say, a certain amount, you need to get that information. They're not ignoring that.
Exactly.
And they're positioning
And then
everything.
there's And then there's the reviews. Unfortunately, there's a couple of poor reviews at the top here, which is unfortunate, despite the amount of work they put into this. But I just think this is such a fantastic example of sequencing, right? And the strategic kind of layering in of information. The only thing they could have done, I think, maybe is a little bit more call to actions inside of the page that would direct people to either, call to action or
Yes.
do
Go
some
up.
form
Yeah.
of like next step. That would be
Yes.
the only thing. But really, really, really good example. We'll make sure all these examples are in the notes below this episode, so you can actually jump in there and have a look at some of these
I would,
websites yourself
and I would
as
encourage you
well.
guys to watch the videos. Like, hey, we talked about so many things, we shared so many case studies. So I would really encourage you guys to watch the episode. We talked about landing page. We
Absolutely.
showed you the actual landing page. We showed you a page where we can improve things. And we looked at a specific conversion rate for a store doing 40K plus a month. So you pretty much
Mm,
have everything in one episode. So I'm very excited, like to even
very
watch
cool.
the recording. Like, hey, I want to watch it. I want to come back and look at everything and take notes.
I think that this topic, I mean, most of these topics probably deserve many, many episodes. I feel like we could continue going into this, but so in the next one, Hammond, we'll start to discuss and break down everything related to the average order value
Yes.
and how to increase that, kind of overall to again increase more profitability. So that's what's next in store. Love to hear any feedback from anyone else in terms of like what you enjoyed about this episode. Any final points, Hammond, or any things that you think people really need to know and understand about conversion rate and really optimizing this conversion rate?
So yeah, so just to go over things, lowering the price initially, it's just a way to kind of remove that, risk of your pricing being the problem, but it's not the goal. So we always look at the break even and target ROAS. So just to go over that very quickly, we try to push the margins. We're looking for a higher price, not lower by default. It's just initially to kind of rule that out and focus on your conversion rate. Now, immediate things that I would work on if I was running my store, I'll look at that gap that I mentioned, that obsession. Are you
Yeah.
checking your landing page in details from start to bottom? Are you checking all the reviews? Are you
Mm,
checking the way that you're positioning some text and some images? Are you split testing text and like what you have in your store? I've seen stores where we didn't do any split test for the last like 6 to 8 months. I'm like, hey, we should do that.
yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
not doing tests. So you need to be obsessive about everything and particularly change things. Your images, your buttons, your pricing, everything is up to discussion. Your traffic is one way, like is one thing out of all. So I would really focus on the conversion rate and split testing. That would be probably my main thing if I was,
Mm.
trying to improve my conversion rate.
Agreed. Agreed. Very, very good. Very stimulating conversation as always, Hammond. Super excited to unpack the next one and really look at the average order value. And again, if you have questions, comments, or you wanted to maybe submit your store for us to review and have a look at and give some commentary in terms of conversion rate optimization, things that you might be able to improve, feel free to email support@ecomcapital.com, and then we can handle any requests and then maybe have your store broken down with us here for one
Yes,
of the episodes in the future. So Hammond, thank you so much as always, my friend. Always a pleasure.
it's a pleasure and see you guys next time.
Bye guys. Bye for now.